Did you know that not all stakeholders are equally important? Some have real power over business decisions, while others not so much. But how do we prioritize them effectively? That's where the Stakeholder Salience Model comes in. A framework that helps us identify, classify, and manage stakeholders based on 3 key attributes. Whether we're a functional manager, project leader, or student learning about stakeholder theory, understanding this model can boost our knowledge and add another option to our toolkit. Mismanaging stakeholders can lead to failed projects, lost opportunities, or even a career crisis. Let's dive into the 3 factors that determine stakeholder salience: power, legitimacy, and urgency. The Stakeholder Salience Model was developed by Mitchell, Agle, and Wood in 1997 and focuses on 3 key attributes. Power: can the stakeholder influence business decisions? Power can be, for example, coercive, that is, use of force, utilitarian, say use of money, or normative, use of reputation. Some stakeholders hold legal authority, while others influence through public pressure or social movements. Legitimacy. Does the stakeholder have a legitimate claim or right to be involved? This could be legal, ethical, or contractual. Urgency. Is their demand time-sensitive or critical? Urgency measures how quickly a project manager needs to respond. The more attributes a stakeholder has, the more salient they are, meaning they demand more attention. But how does this translate into stakeholder types? Mitchell, Agle, and Wood classified stakeholders into 7 categories based on their combination of power, legitimacy, and urgency. Here's how these apply in project management. Let's start with dormant stakeholders, with power only. These stakeholders have significant influence, but don't typically actively engage in the project. Example: a senior executive who has decision-making power but doesn't follow daily project progress. They might intervene only if a crisis occurs. The discretionary stakeholders, with legitimacy only, have a valid interest in the project, but no direct power to affect the project, nor any urgency of involvement. Example: a CSR committee that reviews sustainability initiatives but doesn't enforce project decisions. Demanding stakeholders with urgency only. Their requests are immediate, but they lack authority or legitimacy. Example: a junior team member requesting last-minute changes to a project timeline, but without managerial approval. Then, the dominant stakeholders with both power and legitimacy. These have strong influence and a clear stake in the project, but aren't in a rush. Example: a project sponsor, say the CFO, who funds the initiative, but only requires periodic updates unless major issues arise. Next, we have the dangerous stakeholders, with both power and urgency. These stakeholders can force action quickly, often with high stakes. Example: a vocal influencer or activist group launching a social media campaign against the project. Then, we have the dependent stakeholders with both legitimacy and urgency. Dependent stakeholders rely on other stakeholders to act on their behalf, as they have no power to do so themselves. Example: end users or customers awaiting a software release. They need the product urgently, but have no direct influence over development. Finally and ultimately, we have definitive stakeholders with power, legitimacy, and urgency. These are the most critical stakeholders. Their demands should be addressed as a priority. Example: the project client or CEO who has full authority, a vested interest, and requires urgent updates or delivery. The key takeaway: in project management, understanding stakeholder salience helps prioritize communication, allocate resources efficiently, and prevent delays or conflicts. So, how do we use the Stakeholder Salience Model in real life? Firstly, we map our stakeholders using the model. Secondly, we identify which type they fall into, say dominant or definitive. Then, we define our communications and engagement strategy. How are we going to engage the stakeholders to maximize support and minimize conflict? We focus on definitive stakeholders first, then manage others accordingly. Projects that ignore key stakeholders risk losing credibility, funding, and executive and community support. The best leaders identify who matters most and take proactive steps to engage them. Understanding stakeholder salience is a game changer for project managers, business leaders, and policymakers. The key? Recognize who truly matters and act accordingly.